Welcome back to my channel and to my June TBR video, where I'm going to be sharing all the books that I'm hoping to read in the month of June. Now, if you haven't watched one of these videos before, I typically pick 17 books that I want to read for the month, and then I add on 5 books for a total of 22 books. This is my challenge to myself, to read 22 books in the year 2022 every month. So I end up with 22 books total, but the 5 that I pick out live on the video are through my alphabet challenge, where I pick a random letter of the alphabet and then go to my Kindle and choose 5 books that start with that letter. But first, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the 17 books that I've chosen for the month of June. And I think you're going to notice a bit of a pattern here. Now, I've had a ton of different recommendations through social media, and many of them are romance. Well, I went ahead and ordered a bunch of these through my library. It took forever to get them, but lo and behold, they all came in at the same time. So a lot of these books are kind of what I consider to be the ultimate summer reading. So kind of fun romance books, but there's some other kinds of things tucked in there too. So without further ado, what I am adding to my list to read for June: first, 2 books that I did not get to in May. So even though I was able to read 26 books in May, there were a couple books that were on my pile that I did not get to. The first is Nora Roberts' Of Blood and Bone. This is the second book in the Chronicles of the One series, and this follows a society after a kind of plague or pandemic where people who get sick end up having a kind of magic come out of them, whether it's good magic or bad magic. And so this is something that I'm really wanting to follow up on. I think this is a trilogy, and I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I have it on Kindle. I also have it on physical copy from my library, so I want to get to this soon. I also was not able to get to Inspection by Josh Malerman. I've read the first few pages of this just to kind of whet my appetite and get into it a little bit. And it's basically about a school for boys and a school for girls. They're kept separate from each other, and they basically don't know that the other gender exists. This is kind of an interesting plot line. Josh Malerman is known best for Bird Box, which I also read, really enjoyed, and also read the sequel to that, Mallory, as well this year. So looking forward to diving back into his work. Okay, so amongst the many romances that I have on my list, and many of these I don't really even know what they're about, I have The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley. I do love a romance that involves anything related to writing or books, and so I'm assuming with the title of this that I'm going to end up with something along those lines. If I look up a quick synopsis, it is about co-writing literary darlings that hit a plot hole that turn their lives upside down. So a couple people, Katrina and Nathan, are the brightest literary stars on the horizon. Co-written books are topping bestseller lists, but then they end their partnership on bad terms. So I'm sure that will be interesting to dive into. I'm also going to pick up The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, and this is one that I've just heard a ton about. I think it also takes place in academia, which is part of the reason why I was kind of drawn to it. But this is a debut novel, and it says there's not enough data in the world to predict what will make your heart tick. Stella thinks math is the only thing that unites the universe. She comes up with algorithms to predict customer purchases, a job that has given her more money than she knows what to do with, and way less experience in the dating department than the average 30-year-old. It doesn't help that she has Asperger's. So this is a love story about a woman who has Asperger's and is also kind of rooted in data, which sounds interesting to me. I also saw the next book getting just rave reviews on Instagram. This is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I literally have nothing, I have no background on what this book is about. So this says 6 summers to fall in love, 1 moment to fall apart, a weekend to get it right. They say you can never go home again, and for Persephone Fraser, ever since she made the biggest mistake of her life a decade ago, that has felt too true. Instead of glittering summers on the lakeside of her childhood, she spends them in a stylish apartment in the city, going out with friends and keeping everyone at a safe distance from her heart, until she receives the call that sends her racing back to Barry's Bay and into the orbit of Sam Florrick, the man she never thought she'd have to live without. So again, highly recommended. So I went ahead and picked that one up too. A couple of more I have to say I saw this one discussed on Instagram, but also I just happen to love the cover. And this is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is a book about a woman who's always been fascinated by the weather. She's a TV meteorologist, and it looks like there's at least one person that she works with that she might have a likely romance with, maybe the sports reporter Russell. But I have to say, the covers of these romance novels I think are just so fun and bright, and so I'm always drawn into them. Okay, the next one I also saw marketed very heavily on social media is Lease on Love by Fallon Ballard. And this is called Beach Read Meets the Flat Share. And this is a book that basically they're referencing another romance writer that I've read before. And it's a warmly funny, delightfully sharp debut rom-com about a down-on-her-luck young woman who turns an innocent mix-up between a dating app and a roommate app into a new chance at love. So always kind of interesting different meet-cutes that are going on in these romance novels. Okay, I have some other ones on my list, but let me switch to some of these other things that I'm going to be reading in the month of June. Next up is The Lioness by Chris Bajalian, and I've read this author several times before and have always really enjoyed him, but I got like a rave review about this particular book. So this is about an African safari that turns deadly for a Hollywood starlet and her entourage. It's a historical thriller, and I was kind of, I don't know that I would have picked this up if I hadn't seen like such a rave review from several different people who've read this book. This is also the author who wrote the book The Flight Attendant, which is what the HBO Max series is based on. There's several other books that I've actually really, really enjoyed. And so I thought I would pick this one up as well, was able to get it on audio. So looking forward to that. The next book is one that I kind of stumbled across in the new releases at my library, and it's called Five Strangers by Evie Adamson. And I don't know, I think the title kind of drew me in. And then I read the synopsis and wanted to pick it up. So the synopsis is, with its grassy hills and breathtaking city views, London's Hampstead Heath is the perfect place to spend an afternoon with friends and loved ones. And on an unseasonably warm Valentine's Day, the lawns are especially full. So when an aggressive lover's quarrel breaks out, there's an audience of parkgoers nearby to hear the shouts traded back and forth and to watch as the violence escalates suddenly to murder and then suicide. For the five strangers who observe the gruesome act, the memory of the gore is unshakable, but one of them is compelled to question the truth of what she thought she saw. So it sounds like kind of maybe a bit of a thriller or a mystery. Looking forward to picking that up as well. I also have on my list the 8th book in the Chief Inspector Armand Gamache series by Louise Penny. It is called The Beautiful Mystery, and haven't even looked at the plot for this yet because I'm just working my way through this series, and it is one of the highlights of my year. Just loving it so much. So this is a book, it is set in a monastery hidden deep in the wilderness of Quebec, where 24 cloistered monks live in peace and prayer. Ironically, for a community that has taken a vow of silence, the monks have become world famous for their glorious voices, raised in ancient chants, whose effect on both singer and listener is so profound it is known as the Beautiful Mystery. But when the renowned choir director is murdered, the lock on the monastery's massive wooden door is drawn back to admit Inspector Gamache and his crew. So really looking forward to picking that one up as well. Okay, another well-regarded romance novel by Emily Henry, who happens to be the author of The Beach Read that I mentioned earlier. Her book, Book Lovers, is relatively new, and everyone is talking about it and loving it, and I happened to get a copy from my library. So synopsis is, one summer, two rivals, a plot twist they didn't see coming. Nora Stevens' life is books. She's read them all, and she is not that type of heroine. Not the plucky one, not the laid-back dream girl, and especially not the sweetheart. In fact, the only people Nora is a heroine for are her clients, for whom she lands enormous deals as a cutthroat literary agent, and her beloved little sister, Libby. Which is why she agrees to go to Sunshine Falls, North Carolina for the month of August, when Libby begs her for a sister's trip away, with visions of a small-town transformation for Nora, who she's convinced needs to become the heroine in her own story. So, looking forward to that as well. I am also going to pick up the latest installment in CJ Box's Joe Pickett series called Shadows Reel. This is a series that I've been reading for an incredibly long time. This is book number 22. I'm pretty much caught up. I think I might have missed one book on the list at some point that I'll have to pick up. But this is about a Wyoming game warden, Joe Pickett. And what I really love about this series is the series grows with Joe's family. So in every book, he has daughters, they get a year older, he gets a year older, his wife gets a year older, and he's encountering all kinds of different things on his job, but we see the growth of the characters develop over time. And this is one of my favorite things to see with a long-running series. So looking forward to picking up the latest installment there. I also went ahead and grabbed from my local library Abby Jimenez's Part of Your World, which is another book that, again, I've just seen everywhere on social media. So the synopsis here is, after a wild bet, gourmet grilled cheese sandwich, and cuddle with a baby goat, Alex Montgomery has her world turned upside down. The cause, Daniel Grant, a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger than her and as casual as they come, the complete opposite of a sophisticated city girl, Alexis. And yet their chemistry is undeniable. While her ultra-wealthy parents want her to carry on the family legacy of world-renowned surgeons, Alexis doesn't need glory or fame. She's fine being a mere ER doctor. And every minute she spends with Daniel in the tight-knit town where he lives, she's discovering just what's really important. So a lot of these romances, I mean, I don't even know that they're really going to stand out from each other all that much, but I don't know, summer feels like a good time to dive into that genre to me. Now, I also picked up a book that I've heard a lot about that I will tell you, it's a lot easier to get seasonal romances when they are off season. So I picked up Always in December by Emily Stone. And this is about, I think it's an epistolary novel, maybe. It says it started with a letter, it ended with a love story. Every December, Josie posts a letter from her home in London to the parents she lost on Christmas night many years ago. Each year she writes the same 3 words, missing you always. But this year her annual trip to the post box is knocked off course by a bicycle collision with a handsome stranger, a stranger who will change the course of Josie's life. So maybe not epistolary after all, but definitely focused on a plot twist around a letter. All right, just a few more on my list of 17. I also picked up from my local library The Sign for Home by Blair Fell. And this is a book that I have heard about because it is a romance, but it centers on someone with a disability, which is kind of rare. And so I had added this to my list to check out, and then I happened to see it in the new books pile. So the description here is, when Arlo Dilly learns the girl he thought was lost forever might still be out there, he takes it as a sign and embarks on a life-changing journey to find his great love and his freedom. Arlo Dilly is young, handsome, and eager to meet the right girl. He also happens to be deaf-blind, a Jehovah's Witness, and under the strict guardianship of his controlling uncle. His chances of finding someone to love seem slim to none, and yet it had happened once before. Many years ago, at a boarding school for the deaf, Arlo met the love of his life, a mysterious girl with onyx eyes and beautifully expressive hands, which told him the most amazing stories. But tragedy struck, and their love was lost forever, or so Arlo thought. So thought that one would be fun to pick up. Always interested in people who are kind of taking genres and doing something interesting with them. The next book I'm picking up is one that I've also heard some good things about. It is called The Appeal by Janice Hallett. And synopsis for this book, which I don't know a ton about, says, "Dear reader, enclosed are documents relating to the events surrounding the Fairway Players staging of All My Sons and the tragic death of one of its members. Another member is currently in prison for the crime. We have reason to suspect that they are innocent and that there were far darker secrets that have yet to be revealed. We believe that the killer has given themselves away. It's there in writing, hidden in the emails, texts, and letters." So this is one where the reader gets to act like a bit of a detective, and I am all there for that. And then the last book I have on my list of 17 is, of course, the next installment in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series called The Fires of Heaven. This is a book where I don't want to, again, give away too many spoilers, but there's a great Lord of the Dark, and the things that are kind of holding him in place, he's kind of captured, are starting to fail, and his prison is starting to not hold him anymore. And we're seeing this come out more and more across the series of books. So I am very curious to see if this is the book in which that person, or that being, the great Lord of the Darkness, breaks free. We'll see. I'm not sure. But I can tell you these books are very lengthy, small margins, small font, and take me a while to get through. So I'm loving listening to them on audio, and I'm glad to jump into the 5th installment in this really fun fantasy series. Very outside my comfort zone, but really, really enjoying it. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna go ahead and do my alphabet challenge. So I'm gonna pick the letter of the random books that I'm gonna pick out of my Kindle that start with this letter. All right, the letter I picked is U. And now I'm gonna go ahead and open up my Kindle and see what I might have that starts with that letter. All right, so looking for books that start with the letter U. Just scrolling all the way down here. Actually wondering how many of these I have, because that's kind of an unusual letter. So I'm kind of curious what I'm gonna find. Okay, so first up, I see like a book that I immediately want to add to my list just because I heard so much about it a while ago and I've never had a chance to read it. It's actually a series, and I believe the first in the series is called The Uglies, or just Uglies, book 1. It is part of a series called The Uglies. I really do not know much about it at all, but this is one that I saw like on sale on Kindle and I picked it up because it's been around for a while. I believe it's young adult. Not really sure what else it's about. So I'm gonna dive into the first book in that series and see what comes up there. I am also gonna pick up Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I've never read a TJ Klune, but I've heard amazing things about this author, and that's one that I've been wanting to read for a while. So I'm gonna pick up that. Let's see. I'm also going to pick up Kelly McGonigal's The Upside of Stress, Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It. I always love mixing in a couple of books that are nonfiction, so I'm gonna pick that up as well. And let's see, I need a couple more here. I am going to pick up, I'm choosing between 2 different ones, and actually I think I might pick both because they're kind of along the same theme, but from 2 totally different perspectives. So the first book I'm gonna pick up is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I've read at least one other Colson Whitehead, but not this book, and it's been on my list for a really long time. So I'm definitely gonna pick up that one. And then the other one that I'm going to pick up is Underground Airlines by Ben H. Winters. I've read a couple other books by Ben H. Winters that are set in kind of a bit of like a post-apocalyptic world. I believe that this is also a play on the concept of the Underground Railroad, but just from a different angle. I don't know a ton about it. So those are my 5. So I'm gonna read Uglies, Under the Whispering Door, The Upside of Stress, The Underground Railroad, and Underground Airlines. Super excited to check back in with you at the end of this month, beginning of July, to let you know how all of these reads went for me. And thanks for watching. See you again soon.